Welcome to the Wild Type Podcast. I'm Lyssa Lizards.
I'm Neptune the Chameleon.
And we're your reptile girlies.
Should we address the elephant in the room?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you just so excited?
There's something brand freaking new if you guys, didn't notice.
I feel like this is a very similar feeling from when we got our mics for the first time.
Yes.
And we felt like official podcasters.
Oh, yeah. It feels super legit, super real. Like, it just feels like a big
And now
deal.
this is like the next step up.
I know. I'm so proud.
Like we were neon sign official.
I
And
know.
not just any old neon, like custom.
Super cool neon sign. This is probably the coolest neon sign I've ever seen, but I'm obviously very biased.
Very biased. Yeah. We've gotten a couple comments on YouTube of like people giving suggestions for the neon sign. They were like white with green leaves.
Yeah.
We just went for the whole thing. We just did the exact logo and we just got it full custom.
It's perfect. And I'm so happy with it. And I'm so excited. Oh, it just looks so good.
Yes.
Yay.
And our neon sign will be making its debut.
It will at NARBC Dallas.
Yes.
So if you are coming to NARBC Dallas, you will get to see the sign in person.
Which should be this weekend.
Yes.
The weekend after this podcast comes out. September 7th and 8th.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So come see us. Come hang out. We're going to be at the booth. We're going to be doing hopefully some live episodes, some different things.
We will have brand new merch.
Yes.
We will have free stickers.
Yes.
We will have both of us there.
Yes.
And we will be by the bathroom and the concession stand. So
I forgot about that.
if you need to eat and go potty, come say hi.
Come hang out. We'll be right there. We can catch you on your lunch break.
There you go. There you go. But yes, please come say hi to us at NARBC Dallas. I think we will try to find some time to like mosey through the booths and stuff like that. So if you see us, stop us. Would love to chat with you guys and very much looking forward to that.
We are so excited. It's our very first booth. We have lots of exciting plans, so we can't wait.
Yay!
Yay! Well, so just a funny little random story that happened to me this week.
Speaking of meeting people.
Yes, exactly. So I was at my favorite reptile shop and I go in there I would say every couple weeks or so. So I'm pretty frequent in there. And I always have to be careful because the only places that I ever get recognized are reptile expos or reptile shops, right?
Same.
I mean, nobody knows me outside of those places.
Once I was recognized at the Apple store in the mall. But besides that, I'm in the exact same camp as you.
Other than that one. But so I was in this reptile shop and there was somebody who was talking to one of the employees about doing a skeletal articulation for their snake. And I had just done that for Barney. If you guys haven't seen that video, it's on my TikTok, on my Instagram. But I did a skeletal articulation of my panther Chameleon who had passed. And so I started talking to this guy because I was so excited about, the skeleton thing because not everybody does that. And it's so cool. And so I start talking to him about it. And mid-conversation, after we were kind of done talking about the skeletal articulation thing, and remember, I had started the conversation with this guy, right? He hadn't come up to me or anything. And as soon as we were done talking about the skeleton of it all, he looks at me and he was like, "How's Tarzan?" And I was like,
"Oh my gosh.
Hold up. What?"
You mean my snake Tarzan? Yeah.
It threw me for the biggest loop because I thought this was just a random person who didn't know me. And I struck up a conversation with him. And then mid-conversation mentions my pet by name. I was so caught off guard.
Yeah, I would have been too. Yeah.
I know.
If someone was like, "Hey, how's Neptune?" I'm like, "What?"
What? Yeah, it was so funny. And I know that when I'm in the reptile shops and stuff, people may recognize me from social media or whatever, but it was the most random thing because usually someone will come up and say "Oh, I love your videos," or "I love your pets," I watch your stuff, whatever. But he just slid it right into casual conversation.
No biggie. Yeah.
It was so funny. It was probably one of the most random times that's ever happened to me because it caught me so off guard. I was so shocked.
No, I believe it.
Yeah. So that was just a fun little thing that happened to me. And I know you've had it happen to you too and stuff. But.
Yeah. No, like I said, we absolutely love meeting people.
Oh yeah. It's my favorite thing. It's
the
best.
Maybe just lead with, "Hey, I'm a big fan of your content." So there's a little bit of context clues for...
I've seen you on social media before, anything. Because it just so threw me off.
Oh, absolutely.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my funny little thing that
I
happened
love
this
that.
week.
Tarzan's always the one that people ask about.
He is always the one. Like, I've been in reptile expos and somebody will like shout from like kind of far away because, you know, expos are busy and there's a lot of traffic and stuff. And somebody will just be like, hey, I love Tarzan. And I'm like, thanks. So it's always him.
Me too.
He's just a big favorite. Everybody loves him. And I mean, I'm
For
biased.
good reason.
I love
Yeah.
him too. I'm definitely, he's probably one of my favorites. Don't tell the others. But
Don't tell the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, today, getting into our actual topic, this is kind of a fun one. And I feel like it's a little bit of like the basics, but in a good way. And I feel like we've never fully covered it all before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, but basically, we were kind of going to walk through like all the steps of like what happens when you're bringing a new pet home. Mm-hmm. So, and there are a lot of steps that need to happen.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And I think this is good for anyone who is maybe getting their first reptile, but also a good refresher, right? If you've like had a few reptiles for a while and you're getting another one, like I think sometimes you forget everything that goes into it, including all the panic and anxiety of like bringing them home.
It's very hard to forget, or like easy to forget everything.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot.
When we were brainstorming before, we kind of broke it down into two parts, like right before you bring them home and then like right after you bring them home.
Yes. And there are a laundry list of steps for both of those situations. So like one of the ones, at least, that I love to say, and we've said this a million times, I feel like, but before you even get the reptile to bring them home, to find a vet, because that can actually be more challenging than you think, because there's a lot of different vets. Yes. And there are also some more rural areas don't have them nearby.
Yep.
So that's like, I would say one of the biggest ones, because
because it's not an if, it's a when, and it gives you peace of mind. And realistically, this is maybe a hot take. If you don't have an exotic vet in your area, then maybe you should reconsider getting an exotic pet,
I would agree. And, you know, everybody's going to make that decision for themselves and all of that, but that's definitely my take as well.
But it's good to know, right? Or if the closest one is 5 hours away, then, like, you have to decide whether or not you're okay making that trek, right? Or maybe you've got 3 in your area. Fantastic, right? So, finding the vet. One that I always say, again, this kind of seems like an obvious one, is to get the enclosure set up ahead of time. And I'm talking like checking your temperatures, checking your humidity. If you own a solar meter, checking your UV index numbers, because it's one thing to like go off of care guides of like use a 50-watt bulb or mist many times.
And we've talked about this a million times. There are so many factors that you can't rely on just that. You have to make sure that, you know,
for your environment, and if you're going bioactive, then you need time for like, well, even just like when you put bioactive substrate, sometimes the humidity is really high or really low, depending if it's really dry or moist.
And people don't talk about that enough, because the amount of DMs that I've gotten from people being like, I just put the substrate in there and I don't know how to bring the humidity down. And I'm like, give it a couple days.
It needs time to dry out.
Down.
Yeah. And so that goes with everything else, right? And like how you set up your enclosure is going to be different, and we can like research and plan, but until it's like up and running, so to speak, and it just gives you a level of confidence in making sure that your light timers actually work, that your thermostat's actually working, because the last thing you want is to find that out it doesn't work, like when you have an animal in there.
Right. And so to kind of, I would say you almost have to have, and I know this isn't always the case for chameleons, so for other reptiles, this is like critical, and we've done a whole episode on quarantining, but on the topic of like, you know, having the enclosure set up, if you're going to quarantine, which you should, most reptiles really need to be quarantined. So if you're doing that, you kind of have to have both enclosures set up beforehand. So there's the permanent enclosure, which, you know, I usually am going to be doing bioactive or naturalistic, up to you, you know, how you're going to do it. But you want to have the permanent enclosure ready to go. And then you also want to have the quarantine setup ready to go.
Absolutely.
Both are obviously super critical. And you have a little bit more time with the permanent one, but either way, you got to have at least one of them set up and ready to go. I am 100% on board with that. And if you want more details on quarantining and why and all of that stuff, you can check out our quarantine episode. That was a good one.
Quarantine's a big one. Another thing I like to advise for people prior to bringing their pets home is to prep your food. Whether that means bugs, rodents, whatever it is, veggies. ordering them ahead of time if you're not getting them local so that you have time to have food. And a lot of people don't realize like how long it can take to get food, and if you're buying frozen, then that's fine. And then start gut loading your bugs and like just doing that stuff a few days ahead of time, or like the week leading up to bringing your reptile home, like getting your food in order, especially when you're dealing with like live bugs, is a good idea.
Yeah, 100%. Because especially, you and I both order our bugs online most of the time. And so
I just placed an order today.
I actually need to, but I'm going out of town in the next week, so I'm waiting till I get back.
Yep, that tracks.
But I'm due to order a shipment of bugs.
I got some dubious, hornworms, and black soldier fly larvae.
I love it. I'm definitely going to get some black soldier fly larvae. I'm running low on dubias, so, I got to
restock.
Got to make all that work. So, okay, I think that was it for all of our beforehand.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, those are.
I don't have my notebook, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm leaving today. So, have a vet, order your bugs in advance, get that all prepped, prep all of the enclosures, check all your temps, check all your UVB, and then you get your baby.
Yep. Whether it's a local pickup or you're shipping them, however you're getting them, one of the biggest things that I always recommend is to like limit handling them and watching them, which is so incredibly difficult.
It is a
because
nightmare.
You have this magical creature in your home,
and you just want to hold them,
or just look at them, right? Like even sometimes looking at them is too much.
Can stress them out too much. Yeah.
And I've mentioned this in a previous episode, but like the time you take to like take them out of their transport container, whether that's a bag or a deli cup, whatever, like take your pictures, enjoy it while you can, because then you're going to leave them alone for at least 2 weeks.
At least 2 weeks.
Which is our recommendation, usually, in most people's recommendation for how long you should leave an animal alone. And of course, case by case basis, like for a lot of animals, it's longer than 2 weeks, because then you're starting to build trust, and like it's unlikely, again, very dependent, but that you're going to be able to like be like, okay, 2 weeks is up, let's go, and handle them all the time.
And let me be clear too, because when we say like don't handle them, some people oftentimes will kind of freak out and be like, well, what about feeding them? What do I do? How do I feed? How do I do this? And yada yada. So like obviously you're going to be feeding them, and you feed them. You can use your bowl, use your dish, your cup, whatever. You can also attempt to tongue feed if they don't seem overly afraid. Like I would say like leopard geckos, African fat-tailed geckos, beardies, stuff like that. They're usually going to be pretty quick to go for food regardless. So, and then there are the situations too where I hear this with beardies all the time of like, well, they want to come out. They keep trying to come out. And that's okay if they're really making that effort. Just make sure that you're putting them back in the enclosure more than you're letting them come out.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have to adjust.
Yep.
Like, it's a big adjustment.
Yeah, and you can unintentionally train them to, like, come out all the time. So you kind of have to, like, leave them in their environment, give them time to settle in. So speaking of eating, another common thing are one of two scenarios. One of three scenarios. One is they don't eat at all.
Yes.
For the first couple of days, and you're freaking out because you're like, why aren't they eating? Yes. This is normal. Remember, it's a new environment. They may have just been shipped overnight, or you just drove with them, whatever.
And I just want to throw this in there because you said a couple days. For snakes, it could easily be them not eating for the first month or two. So just like
whatever period of time is normal for your species. For most lizards, though, you're looking at days, not weeks.
Totally.
So that's scenario one. Scenario two is they eat for the first couple of days, and then they stop eating.
Yep.
And you're like, wow, they're such a great eater. They're eating in front of me. But
everything's going great.
As they get more comfortable in their enclosure, then they're being like, I'm not so sure about this. So that's scenario two, also very common, also very expected.
Yes.
Then scenario three, you got a little food goblin, and they're just eating their food right away from the beginning.
And they have no problems. And consider yourself blessed. That's lovely.
and that's a totally fair scenario too. And it varies animal to animal. And I do want to mention, if you set up your enclosure, get them settled in, and then make a bunch of changes, that timer restarts.
Yep. Every time you make enclosure changes, like literally to this day, animals that I have had for like 6 years, if I go in and rearrange their entire enclosure or add things or change things or whatever, I will not handle them for at least 2 weeks after that.
Right. Or they could stop eating all of a sudden. So this is another one of my recommendations, because sometimes what happens is new keepers find out new information, like, oh, actually, I shouldn't be using this. I should be using this. Just try to make all of the changes at once, like rip off the Band-Aid. Making gradual changes does not benefit them. Taking them out of their enclosure isn't always necessary. Like a lot of times you can just work around them, especially if you're not able to handle them
Right.
without stressing them out. So that's just my recommendation, what I've kind of observed, but
It's a pretty good recommendation. pretty good if I do say so
good one.
myself. Yes.
Yeah.
But the next one I would say, and this goes hand in hand with that finding a vet one,
Yeah.
is if you can, and if you have a vet close to you and you've worked all that out and you have that all prepped in advance, which we highly recommend.
that goes back to
Back
what we said earlier.
Back to what we said earlier. But I think it is always really, really good to get a baseline fecal test done.
Yes.
Because that is just, I mean, you're going to rule out a lot of potential issues. And oftentimes I will say the vet will usually require seeing the animal for the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
So just know you might have to actually take them in, do an exam.
Yeah, you're probably looking like, what did you say, $150 to $100?
Max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
because it's
say
usually like $60 for 40 to 60 for a fecal.
for the fecal, but sometimes the exam alone is like 75 to 80.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So a plan for maybe around $200. But this gives you peace of mind.
And a baseline.
Yes.
It gives you like a baseline of health where you know, like, okay, everything looks good ever since this date.
Yes,
like on this
internally.
date.
So then if they all of a sudden like are acting weird, then you can start to work on environmental things that may be impacting them because you know
100%.
internally that they should be fine. So definitely recommend fecal tests. Another thing is giving them water, especially if they were shipped overnight
Yes.
because they haven't had any water, which is fine. Like they're okay.
They're going to be fine. Don't freak out.
They're fine. But it is a good option. Like if you're have a species where you spray them, like
Yes.
New Caledonians or chameleons or anything like that, like just give them a good long missing, even if it's in the middle of the day, just give them that opportunity to
Drink water.
to drink and hydrate and everything else. And then if you have any snakes or other lizards that don't require missing, offering a clean water bowl, like just giving them that water option, I think is smart.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes it kind of depends, but especially if you ship them, you'll usually see them drink water sometimes before they'll even eat. So that's definitely really, really important.
Yeah.
So, and then I think one of the other main things we had on there, which is kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with like letting them adjust to the environment and not handling them too much, just be totally prepared for the fact that like they might either hide in the same hide for weeks at a time.
Yes.
Or they might totally just go crazy and explore everything. Both are normal.
Yes.
Both are normal.
Yes, this goes back to the food thing, right?
Yes.
Where you could have either scenario, either
Yeah.
extreme, and it could be totally fine.
Yep.
Totally fine. What would be concerning is things of stress, so like closed eyes during the daytime for
Right.
species that don't normally do that. Concerning colors or limbs that aren't looking quite right, or weird behaviors like opening their mouth when normally they shouldn't. Wheezing or popping sounds are common for upper respiratory infections. Things like that would be like red flag of
Yes.
like, okay, we need to
Yes.
go to the vet, address something.
Yeah.
But you're totally right. They can just literally sit in the same spot or same two spots, and like that could be normal because again they're getting acclimated to their new environment. Or you can have what I like to call spidey chameleons, where they're like climbing upside down,
They're going
around.
crazy.
Yeah. That's how that's how Venus was when I first brought her home. She was all over the enclosure. But Pluto, when I brought him home, he was like, I'm just gonna chill.
This is safe. I'm not moving.
I'm not getting eaten here, so this is good. Yeah. So it totally varies, but it's good to call that out because it can vary, and you don't know if all that movement is normal. Because like, oh, is something wrong? Why are they wanting to like?
Yeah.
But they could just be exploring.
And a lot of that is basically just like personality differences. Like some of them are going to be, a little more confident to go and explore. Some of them are going to be a little bit more afraid and want to stay in the same spot that feels secure. So it really just varies.
But you're doing a good job as a keeper and an enclosure builder if it's hard to find them in their enclosure, right?
It's so funny. Anytime I like tell people that, they're always mind blown. Specifically my dad, for some reason. I love my dad dearly. But every time he sees my reptile enclosures, he constantly tells me and complains that it's just so annoying that I just can't see them. It's hard for me to find them. And I have to tell him every time, that is the whole point. Like, that's what we're going for.
Yes.
Like, we want it to be difficult to find them. And he's like, but that's just inconvenient. I'm like, for you.
Absolutely. Whenever I have people come over, they know the game. I mean, because I only have a handful of reptiles, so it's easy. And I'm like, you got to find the chameleon.
Good luck.
And they're like, what color is it? You know, whatever. And I'm like, this one's green. And they're like, oh, because camouflage. And I'm like, no. Luna's just green. She just is cute.
That's just how she looks.
But everyone has to go and find their, and it's so funny for me because they're so predictable, right? I know exactly where they are every time.
Exactly. And it's funny anytime I have people come into my reptile room because they're like, I can't find them. I've been looking for 5 minutes and I can't find them. And I walk over and I'm like, right there. Right there. Because I always know. It's like so easy for us to see them.
Yes. But. So a golden rule that I like to say is that if you can see them, they can see you. And if you can sit across the room and easily spot them, and granted, like desert species aren't going to have nearly as much coverage as like more tropical species. But for our boreal tropical, you know, and making sure your snakes have plenty of hides, like generally speaking, they need to have at least 1 or 2 spots, right, where they can hide and feel safe.
And feel totally hidden.
And for our boreal tropical geckos, lizards, all that, they need lots of coverage because that's what they're used to be and that's how they feel safe and secure. So my golden rule is if you can sit across the room and easily spot them, then they don't have enough coverage.
You got some work to do on that enclosure. That's for sure.
And with that, the 2024 summer season comes to a close. But that also means there's brand new Pangea reptile deals.
Now is a prime time to buy a crested gecko because they have 15 to 20% off discounts on tricolors, dark-based, yellow-based, and red-based cresties throughout the month of September. Both of our New Caledonian geckos love eating from their ledges, so if you want to give them a try, Pangea's acrylic ledges will be on sale along with a 12-pack of their silicone cups.
And no surprise here, they will be offering deals on various isopods, so it's a great time to refresh your bioactive enclosures at PangeaReptile.com.
This is one that I just thought of while we were chatting through this, and I did not have this in my notes, but and this is actually should probably be one of the very, very, very first steps from bringing them home before you put them in their quarantine or, you know, final enclosure. Basically do a big once-over on everything.
We brushed over that because it seems so obvious.
I know, we totally brushed over it. But, like, you want to look for mites. You want to listen, you know, to them breathe a little bit if you can hear anything, because you mentioned you are upper respiratory and stuff like that. So you want to, you know, do a quick listen, make sure their breathing sounds normal. You want to look them all over, check all their nooks and crannies.
Look at toes. Right. Look at toes, look at tails, look at nose, mouth area, eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. All their major body parts. Make sure everything's looking good. Check it. And specifically to triple, quadruple check for mites, look in all the nooks and crannies.
Like, another good idea, also now I'm thinking about it, is probably to weigh them, right?
Yeah.
Get like a baseline weight. And if you have a cool reptile tracker, this is a little plug, I offer a PDF, but it has in there a weight tracker, which I think, because the likelihood of you handling them frequently is going to be slim in the beginning, but it's good to know what their baseline weight was, because if they're losing weight in the couple months you've had them, or they're gaining weight, whatever, or maybe they do need to gain weight, and so then you can monitor because they looked a little skinny when you got them home, or a little overweight, whatever the case may be. So I think that would be a good opportunity.
And you know, not everybody has like a weight at home, but that is something to just think about getting in advance of the animal coming home to you.
Yeah, you can just get like a food scale. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. They're a couple bucks off Amazon. You can get them at Target.
Super cheap.
Or whatever,
And obviously if you take them in for a vet exam, they're going to do that. But it's sometimes nice. You might not get them into the vet for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Until after, you know, they've acclimated a little bit more. So it's nice to have it at home so that you can do that yourself from day one. Yep. That's really good to know.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a big one. But
did we have any others?
I think that was like all that I had on my list. That was all we talked about. Exploring, not exploring, expect the eating to be inconsistent.
Yep.
So I think that's like all the main big things.
Perfect. Then it's back to me, because this week, very exciting. Obviously, we film our podcast in advance, but the week that this episode is coming out is Neptune's Gotcha Day.
Woo, woo, woo. Happy birthday, or Gotcha Day.
Gotcha Day. Birthday, yeah. And so that means I will have had him for 6 years.
Dude, that's wild. That is wild. Because I met you when he was...
not even 1.
He wasn't even 1 yet.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. That means we've almost known each other for 6 years.
Yeah.
Which is even crazier.
Yeah. So I wanted to take the opportunity to tell Neptune's kind of like Gotcha Day story. Because everyone always asks me how I got into chameleons. And I'm not... like, you were a big Steve Irwin kid. And then your elementary school teacher had geckos. And then, you know, you were kind of like always headed in that
Yes.
direction.
It was going to happen with me regardless.
I wasn't quite like that. Like, always big into animals, always
Yeah.
had tons of pets. We had a lot of pets, unconventional pets, things like that.
Yeah.
Like, always have been a big animal person. But it wasn't until I saw a chameleon on the internet, like a picture of a panther, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And honestly, that memory is so fuzzy, and I wish it was like crisper of like what I remembered thinking that prompted me. But anyways, I stumbled across a local reptile shop and went in there, and they had baby chameleons. It was the first time I saw one in person. And actually, today, the day we're actually filming the podcast, not when it'll come out,
Right.
is actually 6 years since I held a chameleon for the first time.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so we're like coming up in that window. It was like a couple weeks before I got Neptune, because I had done all my research. I had gone like all these things, and I had gone to the local reptile shop, saw one, and it like made me redo all the research I had done previously. So at this point, I probably already had my enclosure set up. I snagged a dragon strand off Facebook Marketplace.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
That you found that steal.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So I snagged that off Facebook Marketplace. So I had my enclosure all ready to go. I was like prepped and ready.
Yeah.
I was like all over the chameleon forums. I was doing it. I was just waiting for
Your
chameleon.
moment.
Yeah. And I was at this reptile shop like almost every weekend, just
yeah.
asking questions, learning.
For sure.
Wondering and eavesdropping on people's conversations to hear what they were saying and what they were asking. And so Labor Day sale rolls around, and they put all their animals on discount.
You don't want to miss that sale. That is a good sale.
Yeah, and so I think Neptune was like 10% off or something like that. So I paid a total of $275.
Which, by today's pricing standards,
now panthers are
wild.
a minimum of $500.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, but they had just gotten the babies in, and so they're like, we're quarantining them, which is a very good sign of a good place to buy.
Of a good reptile shop.
Yeah, because they're like, so you can't take them home. So I literally went home with the receipt. And keep in mind, I have an enclosure ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, that's so depressing. Oh
like,
my gosh, I would be so crushed. But also, like, that's such a good thing that they were doing
and
that.
I'm like, thank you.
But it's also so disappointing.
But I am going home with a piece of paper that is worth $275. So
like, I just feel like I spent $275 on nothing.
Nothing. So, and then I was like, I want a boy. And if you don't know, panther chameleons are like, they look very similar between males and females. They are all just brown little chicken nuggets. Yeah. They don't have their crazy colors yet.
It's usually not until, like 7 to 9 months that their colors, like, really come in, or is it more?
Sooner, like 5 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you know what you're doing, and this is not shade at anyone, but, like, if you know what you're doing, you can sex them right out of the egg.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, you have to have a trained eye for it, because you have to look for the hemipenal bulge, and it can be, like, very minor.
Very minor.
Yeah. And I, like, this is me. I did research of, like, looking at baby panthers, because I was like, this reptile shop's awesome, but I don't trust them to, like, for sure give me a male, because, like, what if they accidentally give me a female, whatever. So I was, like, pretty sure he was a male. So anyways, I have to come back, like, a couple days later, and that was Neptune's actually gotcha day, September 5th. Even though I purchased him on a Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
It was like a rainy day. I got him on a little stick with a box, a little paper towel, and I put him in the passenger seat, and I don't close the box all the way, which is a rookie mistake I learned, because...
my jaw dropped immediately.
Because I was like, he'll just stay on the stick. No. So I pull into my apartment, and Neptune has climbed off the stick onto my, like, leather seat, and it's just hanging there, puffing up like a little chicken
terrifying.
Nugget. And so I'm like, what do I do? So then I, like, basically take the stick and kind of, like, bop him off the
and you
seat.
have, like, 0 to none, like, you have, like, no experience at this point. Of like,
just the one veil I held at that expo a couple weeks prior.
That's terrifying. If you don't know what you're doing in terms of handling, like, that's a scary moment.
Yep. So I got him back in the box, and I'm, like, freaking out. I put him in his enclosure, and chameleons are in 2 foot by 4 foot, and Neptune's, like, a couple inches max. So this enclosure looks massive for how tiny he is, and then he turns, like, black. Like, so dark. Which is another thing, like, color changes and stuff, like, is very common because they're, like, stress-related. But he ate right away. I caught him on camera eating his little, like, doobie roaches or whatever I got him. And, like, the rest is history. Now it's been 6 years. And he's still in that same enclosure.
That's wild.
I mean, I've redone it many times. But, like, the enclosure itself is still
the
kicking.
same one enclosure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that story. That's so sweet.
So you weren't there for that one.
I wasn't, which is so funny because I feel like I've been there for like 99% of things.
All the other animals you were there for, but
Same with mine. I mean, Barney was one of the only ones you weren't there for. Charlie, obviously, but most of the ones after that, you were there for.
Yeah, I wasn't there for Poke.
No.
But I think everyone else I was there for.
I know, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think so.
I think that was just those three. Yeah. But anyways, that was an Neptune Gotcha Day. I think it's very cool to celebrate Gotcha Days. He always gets a couple hornworms. I think this is what separates us a little bit from, like, as pet keepers from, like, other people who are in the hobby. Is pet keepers. And this, again, plenty of breeders track, like, Hatch Days, Gotcha Days, whatever. But I think as pet keepers, we get a little more emotionally invested.
We're just a little bit more attached than other people might be. But.
A little more invested. And if I could make him a little hornworm cake, I totally would. But
why not? I mean, I know you can't, but you know what I mean.
I'll just leave the flames out of it.
It's our a couple of extra hornworms is our version of the puppy cakes. You know,
exactly.
Like we got to do what we can.
Exactly. Yeah. So very exciting. It's crazy because like that's what set all this off. Like I would not be filming this podcast. I would not
without
have
him.
Neptune the Chameleon like brand and channel and like everything else, and like
it's a big freaking deal.
He was the one. You know, that got it all started. So
that's how I was with Barney too. I mean, it was like I wouldn't be here without him. So I get it.
Yeah. So we always have a special spot, you know, for the one that whether it's a dog, a cat, a chameleon, whatever it is, you know, the one that kind of
whichever one started your passion. Like they just have a really special place in your heart, and it's a good one.
Yeah.
So sweet.
So I just wanted to share that. So
happy Gotcha Day to Neptune.
Happy Gotcha Day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now we can move on to our next little segment.
Let's do it.
Which this one, so a couple weeks ago, I don't remember which episode exactly. Do you that we did the
maybe like 2 episodes ago? Yeah.
Well, we basically did like a little bit of a segment of kind of like what are the most common things
people say when you're single.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And so this time, because you know I'm not single, I am married woman, so no longer a young maid, but.
When you put it that way.
I know. But basically we're doing the same version of that, of things people say to couples.
Yes.
And this is not just married couples.
No,
also,
just couples in general.
Couples in general. And the number one most asked question that you hear right off the bat always is, how long have you been dating? Which is an interesting question because I feel like everybody's story is so different.
Yeah.
And like for example, Logan and I, we met and then we didn't start officially like, you
boyfriend, girlfriend.
We are officially dating for almost 6 months. It was like we had like a long like casual dating.
Keep in mind this is during COVID, so like the world was ending. So like,
well, but also I would have done that COVID or not.
Okay. Well,
I was the type of person that like you're not getting that official label until I've known you. And like
I'm at the point now. If you don't know by 3 months.
Oh, that's wild to me. I agree.
Don't waste my time.
I agree in that situation. But when I was in my 20s, I was like, no, I need to know this man for like 6 to 8 months before I make anything official.
I'm like, chop, move it along. Don't waste my time.
Which is fair at this stage in our lives. That is very, very fair. And I would, if I were in your shoes, I would be doing the same thing.
Yeah, but it's true of like how long have you been dating? Because it's like, is it the window of times where you were going on dates? Technically, you're dating, but you're not official. Yes. So then there's like your anniversary. Is that like the day you became boyfriend, girlfriend? Or is it the day that you went on your first date? Or is it the day that you met? And maybe you were hanging out as friends for a while.
That's so true.
Then you started dating. Then you have the like time you've been like married, for example, right? So it's like, when's your anniversary? Well, like you've only been married for almost a year.
But I have so many anniversaries.
Right. So then it's like
because we recently this past May came across our like, oh wow, we have known each other for 4 years now. And so that was like a little, we like acknowledged that moment in May this year of kind of like, oh my gosh, like our first date was 4 years ago today. Like we met 4 years ago today. Yeah. That's crazy. So we had that anniversary. So everybody has different anniversaries, and like the definition of like how long you've been dating really just depends.
Yeah. So what's your answer then?
So mine would be, well, I don't know, now that I'm married, it's like a whole other thing. But it would be, you know, we've known each other for 4 years. So that's what I would say. If I got asked the question, like, how long have you been together? I would have said, like, oh, we met in 2020. We've known each other for 4 years.
Okay.
That's how I answer it. But
so you would be inclusive of your time you were dating pre-titles.
Kind of. That's why I specifically answer that with, like, we've known each other.
Right.
But if I'm really answering the dating question, it would be, like, from the time of, like, we officially started dating until, actually, it was just exactly we dated for 2 years before we got engaged. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, our dating anniversary is in October, and he proposed in October.
And then you got married.
Yes. In October. So October's a big month in our household.
Yep.
It's also Halloween, which is also a big month in our household.
Episode's coming soon. Yes.
So, you know, October's just a huge month for us. It's like our official dating. It's our wedding anniversary. It's our dating. It's everything. So.
Yep. No, I would say I can't go into like the marriage piece of it. Right. But if someone asked me how long you've been dating, if it's in that 3-month window of like we went on a couple of dates, you know, and then we became official, I would just go off of the official date.
Yes.
Of like when we were officially like boyfriend, girlfriend. And then if there was follow-up questions, I'm like, okay, we've known each other like X amount of time. But like I said, I'm at the point where like chop, like a few dates in, you know.
For sure.
Like if you don't know by then if this is something that you're interested in but I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, with Logan, I definitely knew by month 3, because by month 3, I stopped, like, texting other people or talking to other people or whatever. So I definitely knew by month 3.
But you took the other 3 months to just be like, for sure.
Feel real confident. And I was such a slow dater. I'm not kidding. Every single person that I have, like, dated, almost, there's, like, one outlier, but pretty much every person that I've dated, there was like a long talking period where it was like we're casually dating.
And it's a case by case basis of like how many dates are you going on? Because if you're only going on like 2 dates a month, then like 3 months is not going to be enough time. But if you're able to like go on a date like once a week or every other week or something like that, like that seems like a good initial cadence.
Yes.
And so like the 3 months, to be clear, is not a hard and fast rule. But like I'm like, if you've gone on like 10 dates and you're like still wishy-washy, then I'm like, it's
so funny because that's definitely my mentality nowadays.
Yeah.
But when I was dating, that was never my mentality ever. I was very slow to date. I was like,
I think too, though, you become more sure of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's either yes or no, right? Like this, and you can tell sooner
I liked
if the vibe is there, right? If there's like good chemistry and good conversation.
For sure.
And I think you're like, okay, I felt it when it's like, good, and I felt it when it's
right.
So if it's just like
I was just
move along.
right before I met Logan, literally like right before the pandemic, I was just so big in my party phase that I was like, I have the world of options. I want all the options, and I don't want to give up my options.
Yeah, that's fine too.
So that was my mentality, but I've also grown up a lot.
No, we are dating with intention over here, so I'm like, next, move it along. This is not.
Yeah.
This is not working.
Just going right through.
Just let me know. Yeah.
But that question's always like just an interesting one because there's so many different ways that you can answer it. And I think it's interesting too because I'm realizing as we're talking about it that like my answer to that question has changed and shifted as our relationship has gone on. Because like if you had asked me that within the first year of us dating, I would have said, you know, from the exact date of our dating, like of, you know, us becoming official or whatever. But now that like we're married and stuff, it's like, oh, we've known each other since like the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, like, it all worked out in the end. So that time means something.
Exactly. So it's like the way that you answer that, I feel like also evolves and changes over time. Yeah. So it's just an interesting question because there's just so many answers. Many answers to it.
Let us know in the comments what your answer is. If you want to share, you can share how long you've been dating your partner. I know when we did the engagement ring episode, we got some people commenting of how long they've been together. And I think that was really special and really fun to see and hear everyone's different stories. So would love to hear from you guys. I do want to say, Lyssa's mic, we're figuring out what's happening. There.
There's some weird stuff going on. So if this audio was a little bit off, we're really hoping that it pulls through.
I'm going to try and work a little magic post-production, but I just want to call it out that we are aware, we are working on it.
If I sound like I'm 5 miles away, I promise I'm not. There's just something weird going on.
Yes. So we will be actively working on it. I just want to call it out.
Just in case.
So people aren't like, oh, you're sounding weird, whatever. Like,
unfortunately, we know.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll be okay by the time you guys are listening to it. We are working on it. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
I appreciate that because I've been sitting here worrying about this whole time.
all good. Yeah. And we'll have to share with you guys the story of how we got this neon sign and all set up. So maybe in the next episode, we can share that whole story time because that was an adventure.
It was a whole situation and we were very frustrated, and we'll fill you in.
We'll
fill you in. But I think that closes us out for today.
Yes. Next up, we should have a recap episode after NARBC. So very much looking forward to that one.
I'm so excited. We can't wait to see you guys again this coming up weekend at NARBC Dallas. Come and see us.
Yes.
And we are very excited for it. So.
Oh, wait. We have to have time to film the recap. So there'll be a couple episodes in between.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Good point. Not the exact
I
next
take it
one,
back.
but maybe 2 episodes later.
Soon-ish after.
Soon to follow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, do all the things. We really, really appreciate you guys listening. We hope to see you at NARBC Dallas. Mm-hmm. Give us a follow. Give us a subscribe. We are on everything as the Wild Type Podcast.
Yep.
You can find me also everywhere as Lyssa Lizards.
Neptune the Chameleon.
And we will talk to you girlies next time.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.